Hey everybody, Lisa Miller here. Welcome to our fourth podcast for Hey Universe, I'm here. And today's is about ask and you shall receive. Now, what do I mean by that? It's actually an ask and you shall receive reality, and you'll actually find it inside the Bible. Ask and you shall receive. When we ask a question, we're actually asking our brain to actually tap into finding the answer. Our brain starts to look for the answer. So if you ask, I wonder what it would take to have fun today, your brain is starting to look for the fun. And we've talked about in other podcasts how our brain filtering system works. And how it works is what we focus on comes from an unconscious pattern, unless we shift that. So our brain is looking for that unconscious pattern, and that pattern might be around I'm not worthy. So it's showing you more evidence of it. But when you ask a question or request, you're actually rewiring that filtering system, the reticular activating system, to find a different response. You're actually asking it to look for something greater than what your programming is, what your conditioning is, what you've been trained in, what you wired in that first 7 years of your life. And that's why I teach my clients to actually ask questions. Now, 10 years ago, I was using affirmations and I was really frustrated. Vision boards, affirmations, law of attraction stuff, thinking, why isn't this working? I'm being so positive. It doesn't work for most people because it's actually a conclusion. You're not asking anything, you're not curious, and you're going, I am powerful. And guess what? That underlying pattern just comes along and goes, hang on a minute, no, you're not. No, you're not. Remember when that happened? So the underlying pattern comes up, pops up. That filtering system can't actually resonate with what you're saying as an I am statement. And it actually just shows you evidence where you're not powerful. Now, I'll give you an example of this. I was running after my second child was born to lose weight, and I joined a triathlon, small events like that. It might have been a 500-meter swim, a 5K run, and a 10K bike ride. I am not a triathlete, my friends. And I remember I hadn't run since I was a kid, since I've been training for football or soccer when I was a kid. And I remember running. It was quite hilly where I lived in Pukekohe in New Zealand. And I remember running and saying to myself, I am a runner. I can run. And guess what? I would stop within seconds. Every time I did that, I would stop. So I think if I'd been out there and I'd been asking, I wonder what it would be like to have ease with running. I wonder what it would be like to have joy with running. It would have been a different process. But because I was concluding and doing an affirmation, I am a runner, I can run, I would stop. It would just stop me in my tracks. Isn't that interesting? So here I was trying to run after years of not running and pushing and forcing myself and saying, I can run, I am a runner, and I was sabotaging myself. Because when you think about it, when do the greatest things show up? When you think about it, curiosity is the key. Look at little kids. I'm an ex-primary school teacher and education consultant, and I spent years teaching little ones, particularly 5 years old to about 7 in New Zealand. And they ask the most amazing questions we don't think to ask as adults. Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? And they were so curious. And that's what a child is. From 0 to 7, we have this child who is just all about curiosity, all about wondering and awe about life. And oh my goodness, look at that butterfly, when some adults don't even notice the butterflies flying over their heads. So we have this curiosity and wonderment and awe. And that's how we're wiring our brain when we're little. But what happens by 7, we've also wired in all the programming and conditioning. So if we were born and the only human on this planet, we would wire in all the fun and nature and all those things and all the joy. But because there's other people, there's conditioning and programming and culture and religion and other things, we're wiring in everyone else's stuff too. And that curiosity and awe and wonderment starts to go. So the time you get a kid at 7 or 8, school is not so interesting. They're now concluding about their learning. They're now no longer asking the same amount of questions. They're just concluding life is a certain way and school is a certain way and learning is a certain way. And of course, it's a bit sad, isn't it? But we can shift that. We can go back to being this creature of awe and wonder and possibility and joy by asking. because it literally rewires our brain. They've done research on this where question rewires your brain. And that's why neuroscientists talk about curiosity and awe. Do something new, try something new, be creative, and you'll rewire new synaptic pathways. So by asking questions, you're not only tapping into your inner knowing, you're not only tapping into an inner wisdom part of you, but you're rewiring your brain to be different, to come out of that cultural, religious programming and conditioning that you grew up with. And we've all got it. I've still got it, but I've rewired so much of it. I don't live from it very much at all. And it's so freeing. And I live from this curious place most of the time. Of course, we all have our moments, don't we? But I live from this curious place where I'm asking, I wonder what else is possible here. I wonder what else is available. And then my brain lifts into a higher frequency. My inner wisdom starts to come up with the answers, and I've rewired synaptic pathways. So asking a question is going to do those three things at a minimum. So why wouldn't you try? But also it takes you out of the conclusional lower judging stuff. So if you're like, oh, I'm just useless at running, which is what I used to say to myself. And if you're like, I'm no good at social media posts, or I'm no good at exercising, I need to get a coach, or I'm no good at being a really good friend, I lose friends, then you're in a conclusional space. Can you see there is no possibility? And guess what you're doing? You're wiring those old synaptic pathways that have led you to say that in the first place, that were wired in that first 7 years and keep being wired on top of and strengthened. You're actually adding to it. You're strengthening them. You're actually activating them and triggering them. So by saying, I'm useless at that, I'm not good at that, I'm not worthy, you're actually activating them. And by saying, I am worthy, I am great, I am powerful, I am a good friend, most of the time what you're doing is activating them too, because the brain pattern knows on some level that is a lie, that you don't actually feel like that, that your emotional state and your inner unconsciousness does not believe that. But when we ask a question, we're actually deactivating that way to look at life. We're deactivating that system and structure, and you're activating what I call the superconscious being, the superconscious, super knowing, super intelligent part of you. You're activating that instead. Those synaptic pathways start to die off. And wouldn't you want to start killing or rewiring or deactivating or pruning or whatever those old patterns that have you saying those things about yourself, that you're useless, you're not worthy, you're not good enough? Wouldn't you want that to happen instead? To deactivate those parts of you that say that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're useless. And questions have been my main way of doing it. So I have two versions of questions. I have questions that tap me into my knowing. I have questions that open up possibility and that connect me into the quantum field and the intelligence of the universe. And then I have questions that actually activate me looking deeply at my patterns, what I call my self-awareness questions. So I have two lots of them. One of them is about creation and opening up possibility. And one is actually looking to see what the deeper pattern is and seeing what's driving underneath. Because you also ask yourself these questions that lead you to finding out your own answers. Did you know? Little spoiler here, we actually know a lot of our answers already. Yes, we might have to go to a coach to teach us how to do some social media posting, who knows a lot about Instagram if you're a coach online. Yes, if we want to learn how to swim, we've got to go to a swimming coach, probably. Unless we're a natural swimmer, we've got a family member that can teach us. But actually, when it comes to what we desire, when it comes to what we know about ourselves and our lives, when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to creating what we desire out of ease and flow and joy, we actually know 99% of the answers. And we can ask ourselves in the universe, and we have this trilogy of the body and ourselves, the superconscious being, and the universe or the quantum field, where the answers will arise. Our body might show us something like we need to rest before we do that social media post, before we learn how to swim. And the universe might show us with the person that shows up. It brings a person in. So our job is to ask and receive. Ask and you shall receive. And the receiving is actually another podcast. It's a whole podcast. I could do 10 on them. I could do another 3 or 4 on asking and certain questions you can ask and when to ask them. But this will get you thinking about curiosity and awe and wonderment. We're not actually conclusional beings or problem solvers. But when we have conclusions like, I am useless or I am powerful, and we're trying to affirm something over top of these unconscious patterns, and we're not actually rewiring anything. We're not stepping into possibility. We're actually staying in that problem-solving structure I've talked about on other podcasts, and I'll put a link to one in here. We are not here to improve. Like I said in my last podcast, we are not here to get better. We are here to create something amazing. We are here to have joy first and create how that looks to us. Create joy, share our joy, whether it's you being a teacher, whether it's you being a cleaner, whether it's you being a swimming coach. That's what we're here for, to experience joy and to share it. And for me, making podcasts, being a manifestation coach, really, I'm even more than that. The coach who works with you, that takes you back into your own knowing and your flow and your desires, right? But manifestation is a neat way to put it. And I get women coming in because they're like, I've tried all those things. I've tried the affirmations. I've tried putting crystals out at night. I've tried affirming these things. I've tried these serenity prayers. I've tried everything, Lise. I've tried being positive. It's not working. And I tried gratitude journaling too, but I just can't get there. So this is a different way, but it's actually such an easy way because I tried so many things before. So give these simple 2 questions a go. If you don't ask anything else, give these 2 a go. And I ask them when I'm having a great moment. And I ask them when I'm having a trickier time. How does it get better than this? How does it get better than this? I wonder how it gets better than this. You can ask it any way you like. I wonder how it gets better than this. How does it get better than this? And of course, if you're having a trickier time, it's going to be like, wow, how does it get better than this? But when I'm really excited, it's like, wow, show me more, universe. How does it get better than this? But it's the same energy and frequency. And as I ask a question, I'm actually lifting my brain up into that theta frequency, which is where flow comes in, which is where fun and ease comes in, which is where true manifestation is created. And if you look back again on some of my podcasts about the brain, how the brain works and how the universe works, we create when we're in this higher frequency. And when we're born, we're in this higher theta, and over time it goes down to a lower beta, and we're back trying to solve problems. So ask that question first. How does it get better than this? Write it down. Put it on your phone. Notify yourself through your phone's calendar, your computer calendar. Put it on a sticky note. Put it on a board. I used to have a Hessian type board that I pinned everything to remind myself. Because to begin with, I was solving problems and I was saying I am useless and there's something wrong with me. So I had to remind myself that curiosity was key. And curiosity didn't kill the cat. It actually created it, my friend. Put it on that board. Put it on a whiteboard, wherever. Stick it in your car. I've done that before, on sticky notes. Put it anywhere you can. You can also use sticky notes on your computer. So when your screen first comes up, you've got a sticky note. Try that. The other one is, what else is possible? What else is possible here? Wow, what else is possible? Because of course our brain only goes into the possibilities that you've been living and talking about and thinking about and have unconsciously wired in for the last 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, right? When I first left my marriage, all I thought was possible was the same old shit until I started asking these questions. And then 3 months later, after I started asking these questions, I got given $5,000. Now, do you know what difference that made? Because I was left with bad credit in my marriage for 5 years, nowhere to go, and a job that I only had $50 left over from by the time I'd paid my mortgage, because I had to leave my family house and still pay into the mortgage and rent. I had $50 left over. Now, I am not saying this to you to make you feel sorry for me. What I'm saying is, this is what happened. The questions and the journaling I started to teach myself and learn started to shift an internal reality, started to lift my brain into theta, started to rewire the reticular activating system so something new could literally show up. And my friend, it did. Yeah, and some things took longer, some things were faster. It doesn't matter, because you've got to start where you start. But what I want to say to you is, why wouldn't you try? Start asking these questions. I promise you, the universe and your inner knowing, your inner wisdom is going to show you an answer. It's going to download. But the key is not to have an expectation of how it shows up. Now, I have in the past. I've been like, what's going to take for my house to sell? Not this one, but my last one. It took a year, and I was pushing and forcing, and that person who was going to buy it was always going to buy it. It was an old friend who turned up. She offered me a job. I had a job if I wanted that. And my daughter was also able to stay in the house because it was an old friend that turned up. When I let go of it and I surrendered, the house sold 3 weeks later. So you ask from a place of, I don't know the answer. I don't need to know the answer. And I'm handing this over to the universe, my body, and my inner knowing. And I'm going to get on with my day, and I'm going to pivot. So every time there's something wrong, I'm going to pivot out of that and be like, how does it get better than this? What else is possible I've never considered? So give it a go. Why wouldn't you? Because if you're affirming right now, if you're trying to be positive and do gratitude journaling and you're setting goals and you're pushing and forcing and working really hard and nothing's really changing, then guess what? You are just going to have more of the same in another 6 months. But these tools that I teach will powerfully shift you and rewire that brain, the reticular activating system, and rewire what shows up more quickly, because your unconscious pattern is driving your energetics, and it's a be it to see it reality. So when you shift that unconscious pattern, when you shift what's going on underneath, your energetic shift too, and something new will arise, I promise you, because your energetics are creating your reality. We are a human being. We were not called a human doing or a human goal setter. So my friend, give it a go. And I'd love you to reach out. Send me a message underneath, DM me, email me, whatever you want to do. Reach out if you'd like to find out my other services. So thank you for being here. I'm so honored to have you here and listening to me. Start sharing this podcast. Let's get the message out. It's not as hard as we think creating our dreams. It really isn't. Thank you for being here. And what else is possible beyond anything we've ever considered before? Take care.